On the early morning of July 28, 2021, Dhanbad streets were quiet, too quiet for what was about to unfold. Judge Uttam Anand, a respected additional district and sessions judge, stepped out for his routine morning walk. It was a habit that had given him calm before facing some of Jharkhand's most dangerous criminals. But that morning, justice vanished. A speeding auto rickshaw veered deliberately toward him, striking him with precision. CCTV footage later confirmed what everyone feared. This was no accident. Someone had targeted him. Who could do such a thing? Why? Was it retaliation from organized crime, a personal vendetta, or something far more sinister lurking behind the scenes? The investigation exposed shocking gaps, suspicious behavior, and a system that failed to protect one of its own. Tonight, we dive deep into the crime that shook India's judiciary, exploring motives, suspects, and the unanswered questions surrounding Judge Uttam Anand's sudden death. Before we begin, make sure to like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe to Dark Truth 25 for the latest true crime deep dives. Comment your theories below. Your insights help us uncover new angles. Now, let's unravel the story of vanished justice. The morning that changed everything. It was a normal July morning in Dhanbad, Jharkhand. The sun had just begun to peek over the dusty horizon, and the streets were calm, almost eerily quiet. Judge Uttam Anand, a man in his early 50s known for his no-nonsense approach in court, stepped out of his home for his morning walk, a ritual he never skipped. This routine was his way of staying grounded. Over the years, Judge Anand had handled some of the region's most dangerous cases involving coal mafia operators, organized crime syndicates, and high-profile politicians. He was a man respected for his courage, but also quietly feared by those whose actions he curtailed. But on this particular morning, his routine became the stage for a meticulously planned crime. CCTV footage from a nearby shop later revealed the chilling sequence. A three-wheeler auto rickshaw moving unusually close to the pavement. For a moment, it seemed like a pedestrian might cross its path. And then, with shocking precision, it struck Judge Anand. Witnesses later reported that there was no screeching of brakes, no evasive maneuver, just a deliberate hit. The scene raises critical questions. Who had the audacity to target a sitting judge in broad daylight? Was it revenge for a recent ruling? Or was there a deeper, hidden motive yet to be uncovered? Immediately after the incident, local police rushed to the scene. The judge was gravely injured, and despite rapid medical attention, the impact of the attack sent shockwaves across the city and the nation. News channels broadcast the CCTV footage, and social media exploded with outrage. The investigation started with the vehicle, tracing the auto rickshaw and its driver. But early leads were confusing. Witness statements conflicted, CCTV footage had missing frames, and some suspect details didn't match. Was someone trying to cover their tracks? Or was it a perfectly executed crime by professionals? As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered that Judge Anand had recently been assigned several sensitive cases involving individuals with both wealth and influence. Could these powerful figures have orchestrated the attack to silence him? This first chapter of our investigation reveals the terrifying reality of vulnerability even for those sworn to uphold the law. Vanished justice is more than the life of one man. It's the message sent to an entire judicial system. No one is untouchable. Tonight, we will reconstruct every step of that morning, analyze CCTV footage, interview witnesses, and explore the suspects who vanished from sight just as quickly as the justice they feared. Before we move further, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Dark Truth 25 and leave your comments. Your theories and observations could shine light on aspects that investigators might have missed. Vanished leads. The auto, the driver, and first clues. Following the shocking attack on Judge Uttam Anand, the first step for investigators was clear: trace the vehicle. The auto rickshaw that struck the judge became the starting point for unraveling this complex crime. CCTV footage from nearby shops, traffic cameras, and even dash cams from parked vehicles offered partial views of the rickshaw's path. Immediately, inconsistencies appeared. The registration number was missing or fake, and the driver seemed to disappear without a trace. Residents recalled seeing a man near the rickshaw, but descriptions were vague, contradictory, and sometimes conflicting with what the CCTV suggested. Was this the first sign of a deliberate cover-up, or simply the confusion inherent in a chaotic crime scene? Police quickly moved to interview witnesses and identify potential suspects. Yet many hesitated, fearing reprisals or political repercussions. In a city with powerful criminal and business networks, silence often spoke louder than words. The investigation also explored Judge Anand's recent cases. Over the past months, he had passed rulings against influential coal mafia operators and litigants with strong connections. Could these rulings have triggered retaliation? Every lead seemed to vanish into thin air. Some suspects were arrested, only to be released quickly under mysterious circumstances. As the hours and days passed, it became clear that this was not a random attack, but a targeted strike executed with careful planning. The precision of the hit, the timing of the rickshaw, and the driver's disappearance all pointed to premeditation. In this chapter, we'll reconstruct how investigators tracked the auto rickshaw suspects and their suspicious movements connections to Judge Anand's high-profile cases, the gaps, delays, and vanishing leads that baffled police. The chilling reality emerges. Justice had vanished that morning, and those responsible had disappeared into the shadows, leaving only questions in their wake. Before moving forward, like, share, and subscribe to Dark Truth 25. Comment your theories. Every insight could bring us closer to uncovering who is behind this deliberate attack. Vanished motives. Judge Anand's high-risk cases. As investigators delved deeper, a pattern began to emerge. Judge Uttam Anand had handled numerous cases that made powerful enemies. From sentencing coal mafia operators to ruling against politically connected criminals, his courtroom decisions had disrupted many lucrative operations. The investigation team meticulously examined every case he presided over in the months leading up to his death. Certain rulings stood out, controversial judgments that angered influential individuals and, in some instances, jeopardized criminal empires. Experts in criminal behavior emphasize that attacks on judges are often motivated by retaliation or fear, and the precision of this attack aligned with a premeditated plan. The vehicle, the timing, and the location all pointed toward someone intimately familiar with his routine. Authorities also explored possible political links. Could high-ranking figures have influenced or provided cover for the attackers? Early interrogations hinted at hidden connections, but proving them in court proved difficult. Meanwhile, some key witnesses vanished or changed their statements, leaving gaping holes in the investigation. In this chapter, we reconstruct the most controversial cases. Judge Anand had recently handled suspects with possible motives, political and criminal connections that may have orchestrated the attack, the puzzling gaps left by vanishing witnesses and suspects. By analyzing these factors, a clearer picture begins to emerge. This was not random. Justice had vanished that day, and the motive lay hidden in the web of cases Judge Anand had presided over. Before we move forward, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Dark Truth 25. Comment your theories. Your observations might reveal motives the investigators missed. Vanished witnesses, the people who could have spoke. With the initial investigation focusing on the auto rickshaw and the driver, attention soon turned to the witnesses. People who had seen the attack, street vendors, pedestrians, and shopkeepers, suddenly became crucial pieces of evidence. But as interviews began, a troubling pattern emerged. Witnesses were hesitant, fearful, or suddenly unavailable. Some claimed they had forgotten critical details, while others mysteriously relocated or refused to cooperate. Investigators speculated that intimidation or bribery might be at play, a common tactic in high-profile crimes. Forensic experts examined the scene and noticed subtle signs. Footprints that didn't match witnesses' statements, tire marks inconsistent with the official path of the vehicle, and traces of tampering around the CCTV cameras. The attack, it seemed, was designed not just to kill, but to erase evidence and silence anyone who could reveal the truth. Meanwhile, police continued tracing Judge Anand's recent cases. Certain rulings, particularly against individuals with political clout or criminal influence, stood out as potential triggers. Could someone have orchestrated the attack and the subsequent disappearance of witnesses to protect themselves? In this chapter, we examine how witnesses vanished or altered statements, the forensic anomalies at the crime scene, connections between Judge Anand's rulings and potential suspects, the terrifying reality that justice itself seemed to vanish in the face of influence and fear. Every lead appeared to fade into thin air, leaving investigators frustrated and the public demanding answers. Before moving forward, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Dark Truth 25. Comment your thoughts. Your insight may help expose what the authorities couldn't. The investigation widens. Evidence, leads, and hidden threats. After the initial chaos of the attack, investigators realized that this case required meticulous reconstruction. Every frame of CCTV, every eyewitness account, and every trace on the street could potentially hold answers. But as the evidence mounted, so did the complexity of the case. CCTV analysis. The auto rickshaw's path, timing, and sudden disappearance posed a challenge. Analysts combed through hours of footage from neighboring streets, shops, and traffic cameras. What they found was both revealing and puzzling. Multiple angles showed inconsistencies in the driver's movements, and some frames appeared missing or blurred. Could this be deliberate interference or merely technical faults? Forensics and physical evidence. The street where Judge Anand was attacked held subtle clues, tire marks, debris, and traces of the vehicle's route. Forensic teams worked tirelessly, yet the vanishing of certain critical pieces of evidence added a layer of frustration. Investigators began to suspect that someone intentionally obscured key clues to prevent tracing the perpetrators. Witness accounts. The public, initially eager to help, became hesitant. Many witnesses recanted their statements, some vanished, and others refused to come forward. Fear of retaliation or political consequences created a chilling environment for law enforcement. Possible motives and leads. Investigators examined Judge Anand's recent cases, focusing on contentious rulings. Potential suspects emerged, some tied to criminal networks, others with political influence. Each lead, however, brought more questions than answers. Who had the motive, the means, and the opportunity to orchestrate such a precise attack? Challenges in high-risk cases. This chapter highlights the broader obstacles in prosecuting crimes against high-profile figures. The blend of influence, intimidation, and missing evidence makes investigation a delicate balancing act between uncovering the truth and protecting those involved. As the investigation widened, one thing became clear: the attack was not isolated. It was part of a larger web of threats, intimidation, and possibly premeditated planning, leaving both law enforcement and the public grappling with the enormity of the case. By the end of this chapter, viewers understand the Dhanbad attack was far more than a random act of violence. Every lead carried potential, but many had vanished, and the truth remained just out of reach. Before we continue, like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on the unfolding story. Comment your theories. Your observations could help unravel this complex case. The accused, confessions, contradictions, and cracks in the story. As pressure mounted on law enforcement to deliver answers, investigators finally zeroed in on two key suspects: the auto rickshaw driver, Lakhan Varma, and his associate, Rahul Varma. Their arrest was announced as a breakthrough, but as interrogations began, it became clear that this case was anything but straightforward. The initial confessions, too clean, too fast. Both men allegedly confessed early, claiming the hit was an accident, a drunken mishap, an unfortunate collision at dawn. The simplicity of the explanation shocked the public. How could a perfectly straight, isolated stretch of road suddenly lead to a random collision with a jogging judge, followed by a clean getaway and an attempt to hide the vehicle? Even officers found the confessions too smooth, too convenient. Timeline inconsistencies. Soon, The timeline presented by the accused began to crumble. CCTV showed no evidence of swerving before impact. The auto seemed to adjust its angle precisely toward the judge moments before contact. The vehicle did not stop, slow down, or hesitate after the hit. The accused did not appear intoxicated in early scans or questioning. What kind of accident behaves like a calculated pursuit? The second round of statements, a shift in tone. After legal counsel arrived, their statements changed. Suddenly, they couldn't remember parts of the night. Suddenly, they blamed each other. Suddenly, the accident narrative started to unravel. This raised a chilling possibility. Were they covering for someone, or simply following instructions? Background checks, dark connections emerge. Investigators dug deeper into their histories. One had ties to local gangs. Another had previously worked as a driver for influential businessmen. Both had been seen near court neighborhoods days before the attack, raising alarming questions about surveillance and planning. The more the police searched, the more patterns emerged that didn't match a drunken accident. Unanswered questions about motive. If it was just bad luck, why did the auto take that exact route, hit exactly one person, the only person jogging that morning, disappear instantly, go hide the vehicle, show zero panic? A crime with no motive is rare. A crime with a hidden motive is far more common. Forensic cross-examination of the accused. Digital forensics tracked their phones. Multiple calls to suspicious numbers right before and after the incident that a sudden switch-off of phones at critical windows. Possible deleted messages and missing call logs. Their past 48 hours were reconstructed second by second, and still, the pieces did not fit. The big question: coincidence or contract? This chapter forces viewers to confront a difficult possibility. Was this an organized hit carried out by low-level operatives acting under orders? Or were the two accused simply convenient scapegoats placed to take the fall? Neither option brings comfort. Both suggest the presence of larger, invisible players. Fractures in the investigation itself. Some officers quietly admitted they felt rushed to declare suspects. The case was hostile, politically heavy. Certain leads were blocked. Some witnesses refused protection, fearing retaliation. The deeper the probe went, the more the official narrative began to collapse under its own weight. By the end of this chapter, one truth becomes undeniable. The accused were caught, but the real story was still out there, and it wasn't going quietly. If you're watching this now, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. And leave your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe the accused acted alone, or were they ordered? The CCTV footage, a hit or a message? If there is one moment in this case that shook India, it wasn't the arrest and it wasn't the confessions. It was the CCTV footage, grainy, silent, yet louder than any witness testimony. For many viewers, this was their first introduction to the shocking truth. Judge Uttam Anand didn't just collapse on a morning jog. He was struck head-on by an auto rickshaw that seemed to curve toward him with chilling precision. Let's break this down. The footage that changed everything. The clip lasts just a few seconds. Judge Anand jogs on the extreme left of a long, empty road. A single auto rickshaw enters the frame. Not speeding, not swerving, not struggling for control. Instead, it makes a calculated diagonal drift toward him. The moment of impact is brutal. The judge is thrown to the side. The auto doesn't slow. It doesn't stop. It doesn't react. It simply continues and exits the frame. To call this an accident is to lie with your eyes open. Millions watching instantly sense something darker. The strange behavior of the driver. Experts reviewing the movement noticed several red flags. Small Blue Diamond, the auto, was too close to the extreme left, where pedestrians jog, not vehicles. Small Blue Diamond, the angle of the impact looked intentional. The driver didn't brake or attempt to avoid collision. Small Blue Diamond, there were no obstructions on the road that could have forced the driver to move left. Small Blue Diamond, the short pause before hitting the judge looked like a deliberate targeting attempt. This was not chaos. This was choreography. The timestamp, a hidden clue. The attack happened at a time when the road was almost empty. Witness presence was minimal street shops where closed police patrols shift transition was underway. A perfect timing window. Criminal analysts often note one pattern. A planned hit is executed when interruption is least likely. This attack perfectly fit that blueprint. What the CCTVs didn't show. While one camera captured the strike, more cameras pieced together the auto's journey. It circled the area earlier, it took an unusual route, it slowed down near key intersections, it avoided busy roads, the number plate was partly obscured. All signs of pre-hit reconnaissance. Further analysis begins to shift the case. When investigators slowed down the footage frame by frame, they saw something disturbing. The driver tilted his head slightly, as if confirming the target. Whether this was intentional or subconscious, it sent chills through forensic teams. This was not the behavior of a panicked, drunk driver. This was the posture of someone completing a task. The public outrage explodes. Once the footage hit mainstream news, the country erupted. Judges protested, lawyers demanded protection, citizens feared the message behind the killing, activists questioned the state's control over law and order. The footage didn't just reveal a crime. It revealed the fragility of justice when a judge could be struck down in broad daylight. If a judge wasn't safe, what did that mean for the average citizen? Why this footage still haunts India. Even today, analysts revisit this clip for one reason. It doesn't just show a killing. It shows intent. And in cases involving members of the judiciary, intent is everything. It determines whether this was a hit ordered by someone powerful, a warning to the legal community, a message to silence a case, or a chain of events involving more than two people. The footage didn't provide answers. It created bigger questions, questions yet to be resolved. The CCTV footage was supposed to settle the debate. Instead, it ignited one that still burns today. A judge was struck on camera, but the real story, the forces behind that auto, remained hidden in the shadows. If you're still with us, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us push deeper into cases others are afraid to touch. And in the next chapter, we dive into what the public, the judiciary, and the political landscape did after this footage spread across India. The arrests, confessions, and theories that fell apart showed us the crime as it happened. Chapter 8 reveals what came immediately after. A wave of arrests, rushed confessions, and theories that collapsed the moment they were examined closely. For many, this chapter was the turning point when the case shifted from a tragedy to something deeply suspicious. The first breakthrough: 2 men and an auto. Just hours after the CCTV footage went viral, police announced the first major development. 2 men were taken into custody. The driver, Lakhan Varma. The passenger, Rahul Varma. They were caught along with the same auto rickshaw seen in the footage. The public breathed a small sigh of relief. Finally, the killers, people said. But almost immediately, the inconsistencies began. The confession that raised more questions. During interrogation, the suspects reportedly said they had stolen the auto, they were drunk, they didn't see Judge Anand, they hit him by accident. A drunken accident. A judge targeted exactly in the middle of an empty road. Hit at the perfect angle, with no braking, no panic, no swerve. It didn't make sense, and investigators knew it. Even legal experts watching from outside the case wondered, how could this be alcohol-induced carelessness, when the impact looked like deliberate accuracy? The police version versus the public version. Police insisted this was not a planned killing, but the public disagreed. Social media exploded with counter-arguments. Why would drunken thieves drive on an isolated judge's jogging path? Why does the auto drift toward the judge instead of away? Why did the suspects flee the scene so calmly? Why did they wipe parts of the auto clean? If they were drunk, they should have panicked. If they were drunk, they wouldn't react so precisely. If they were drunk, why was their escape route so calculated? The confession simply didn't match the video. The auto's mystery deepens. Mechanical experts inspected the vehicle and found something strange. The auto had no mechanical faults, no steering issues, no brake problems, no signs of malfunction. If the suspects had planned to use mechanical failure as an excuse, it wouldn't work. The auto did exactly what the driver commanded. Were the men just pawns? A new theory gained traction. What if these two weren't the masterminds? What if someone hired them or pressured them to take the blame? People speculated. Criminal groups the judge was ruling against, influential individuals upset by his decisions, local mafia networks, pressure from inside the legal system, threats to the suspects' families. Because one thing became obvious. Their story felt scripted. The theory of a contract hit. While police stuck to the accident angle, others believed this was a contract killing disguised as a hit and run. Patterns commonly seen in professional hits were present. The target's routine was known. The attackers ensured minimal witnesses. The getaway was smooth. The timing was perfect. The auto's approach was precise. Add to that, Judge Anand was hearing sensitive cases involving organized crime. Was this coincidence or consequence? Media begins unraveling their statements. Journalists dug deeper and found the suspects had no serious criminal history to show they were capable of such a calculated attack. Their relationship with local mafia circles was unclear, but not non-existent. Their initial statements changed multiple times. There were signs of coaching during interrogation. They were shockingly calm during the confession. One journalist phrased it perfectly. They confessed too easily, and they confessed too neatly. The story that didn't hold. Within days, the public narrative cracked. The driver said they were just roaming around. Witnesses stated they were seen in the area twice before the strike. Forensic analysis showed the auto slowed, then suddenly accelerated toward the judge. The positioning of the wheels suggested deliberate steering. The confession was supposed to close the case. Instead, it opened 100 new questions. Why police wanted to shut the door so quickly? Some critics argued the police rushed the arrest too. Calm public outrage divert suspicion from more powerful names, closed the case before higher authorities intervened. Because once the footage became a national debate, the pressure on law enforcement was enormous. But a rushed arrest can sometimes be the biggest clue. It shows urgency, and urgency often hides fear. With a haunting realization, the suspects were in custody. The auto was recovered. The confession was recorded. And yet, nothing felt resolved. Nothing felt complete. Nothing felt true. As we move into Chapter 9, we explore a crucial question. If the attackers were just tools, then whose hand guided them? Motives, enemies, and the web surrounding Judge Anand showed how the crime unfolded and how the suspect were caught. Asks the most important question of the entire documentary. Why was Judge Uttam Anand killed? And who truly benefited from his death? This is the heart of the mystery. The silent battlefield of motives, enemies, and hidden beneficiaries. The judge's courtroom, where trouble began. Judge Uttam Anand wasn't just any judge. He was handling cases involving some of the most dangerous people in Jharkhand. Organized crime, groups, coal mafia, syndicates, contract killers, local strongmen with political connections, high-profile gang rivalries. In the weeks before his death, he had made several decisions that angered powerful elements. Most notably, he denied bail to a notorious gangster. He accelerated hearings that had been stalled for years. He reopened files involving financial fraud in coal transport. He issued warnings against local criminals influencing courtroom behavior. This wasn't just a judge doing his job. This was a judge stepping directly on the toes of people who profit from fear. And when someone disrupts that ecosystem, retaliation is never far behind. The list of possible enemies widens. Investigators quietly created a list. Names of individuals or groups who may have wanted the judge silenced. The list included 1. Coal mafia leaders, known for running illegal coal dumps, extortion rackets, and enforced land takeovers. Many feared Judge Anand's strict approach would collapse their networks. 2. Political figures, people who benefited from contracts, protection money, or underground deals. If the judge opened the wrong case or questioned the wrong evidence, it could expose years of corruption. 3. Contract killers and crime syndicates. People who relied on intimidation as a business model. A strict judge threatens that model. 4. certain police personnel, although uncomfortable to acknowledge. Some officers had deep ties to the same criminal syndicates. A judge committed to transparency? He becomes a liability. His final case is the unsettling timing. The timing of his death raised even more suspicion. Just days before he was killed, Judge Anand was reportedly reviewing a major gang-related bail hearing questioning inconsistencies in a murder file, expecting new evidence from a police unit involving corruption allegations, scrutinizing a high-profile case connected to extortion in Dhanbad's coal belt. The overlap between his professional activity and the suddenness of the attack is too sharp to ignore. Investigators themselves described the timing as highly inconvenient for several very influential people. The theory of a message killing. In crime networks, not all killings are meant to hide something. Some are meant to send a message. A judge killed during a morning jog, in a quiet lane, with CCTV cameras capturing every second. That's not only a murder, that's a warning. A warning to other judges, witnesses, law enforcement, rival, criminals, anyone considering speaking up. It tells them, even those who enforce the law can fall. That message is far more powerful than the murder itself. The CCTV footage, a killer's signature? Experts analyzing the footage saw a disturbing pattern. The auto driver didn't simply drive into Judge Anand. He tracked him. The steering angle, the speed, the slight pause before impact. These are characteristics of a trained hitman, someone accustomed to vehicular attacks, someone who knows how to make a murder look like an accident. These patterns match hit jobs seen in Mumbai underworld executions, political eliminations in Bihar coal mafia, rival removals, contract killings across North India. This was not random. This was signature-level precision. The missing link. Who ordered the killing? Even after identifying possible motives, one terrifying gap remained. There was never a direct link between the arrested suspects and the people who would benefit from the judge's death. And in cases like this, that silence speaks volumes. It suggests a middleman may have hired the attackers. The attackers may never have known who the real employer was. Money may have changed hands. Unofficially, instructions may have come indirectly, via threats or leverage. Someone powerful ensured the trail stayed cold. In the criminal world, you don't need to meet your employer. You only need to follow orders. Why every motive links back to power. One chilling pattern emerges. Every possible motive leads upward, toward influence, money, political capital, and criminal empire stability. And every possible beneficiary of the murder was someone beyond the reach of the arrests made so far. This is why the mystery refuses to die. The auto driver and companion may have executed the strike, but the reason for the strike still floats in the shadows. The unfinished story. Chapter 9 concludes with the unanswered question that defines the entire case. Who truly feared Judge Uttam Anand enough to silence him? And why is every important clue locked behind layers of silence? As we move to Chapter 10, we explore the nationwide reactions. The judicial communities fear the push for a CBI investigation and how the entire legal system responded to the killing of one of their own. The untold threads. A case that refuses to close. The deeper the investigation went, the more it became clear that the killing of Judge Uttam Anand was not just a tragic incident. It was a collision point where crime, politics, power, intimidation, and the fragility of judicial independence all violently intersected. And by the time the case reached this phase, it felt as though every answer opened the door to three more questions. 1. A case built on unsettled ground. As the dust settled around the arrests of Lakan Varma and Rahul Varma, the auto driver and his associate, the official narrative still felt unsteady. Police maintained the line. It was a case of accidental hitting caused by negligent driving. But investigators, journalists, and legal experts found themselves circling the same conclusion. If it was an accident, then why did every thread look deliberate? Let's recap the elements that still didn't sit right. The auto changed direction unnaturally, swerving directly toward the judge. The hit was clean, no hesitation, no attempt to avoid. The CCTV frame showed precision, not panic. The vehicle didn't stop, not even after the collision, and the driver never came forward voluntarily. He had to be arrested. Each fragment, when viewed alone, could be explained away. But when viewed together, they formed a pattern that felt intentional. Even senior legal minds quietly admitted, something about this case is incomplete, and that uneasiness only grew stronger. 2. Rising questions about motive. By Chapter 10, the investigation had produced suspects, but not a motive. And in any criminal case, especially one involving a sitting judge, motive is oxygen. Without it, the entire narrative suffocates. Several emerging theories hovered in the background. Theory A, was it linked to his cases? Judge Anand was overseeing sensitive matters. Gangster activities, murder, cases, extortion, network skull mafia, disputes, organized crime operations around Dhanbad. Was someone afraid of his rulings? Was he becoming an obstacle? Nothing concrete, but the possibility lingered. Theory B, was it a message? Judges in India rarely face targeted attacks. When it happens, it is never random. A hit and run might seem crude, but symbolically, it sends a chilling warning. If we can reach him, we can reach anyone. Was the attack meant to paralyze the judiciary through fear? Theory C, was it a larger nexus? The region has long been entangled with coal mafia contract, cartels, illegal mining, syndicate, political business networks. If the killing was connected to any of these, it would explain why the true motive never surfaced. But because none of the theories reached a definitive confirmation, the truth kept slipping through the cracks. 3. The persistent void. What the CBI couldn't explain. The CBI took over with high expectations. But after months of interrogation, reconstruction, and forensic review, the agency presented an explanation that many found unsatisfying. The accused were intoxicated and reckless. They did not intentionally target the judge. This statement triggered a wave of doubt. How could drunk men perfectly time their path to collide with a single individual on an empty road? How could intoxicated drivers execute a collision that looked so controlled? Again, unexplained gaps remained. No clear evidence of hatred, conflict, or confrontation. No financial trail indicating a planned HIT. No confessional clarity. No digital or physical evidence showing premeditation. It was as though the investigation reached a wall that no one or no institution wanted to break through. 4. The public's growing disquiet. People across the country watched the case unfold in the news and felt an increasingly uneasy truth. If a judge can be hit in broad daylight and the motive still remains unknown, what does it say about our system? Social media erupted with questions. Influential voices demanded answers. Judges' associations expressed deep concern and fear. This wasn't just about one man's death anymore. It became a symbol of vulnerability. A reminder that even those who uphold law and justice were not shielded from the darkness surrounding Dhanbad. 5. A system struggling with its reflection. As Chapter 10 progresses, we explore what many analysts called the institutional discomfort zone. The case forced uncomfortable questions. Are powerful people protected when sensitive cases arise? Are investigations shaped by invisible hands? Are crimes reclassified to avoid the domino effect of political fallout? And why did every official response feel rehearsed, careful, and overly sanitized? Even seasoned lawyers whispered. Something doesn't add up. But whispers do not solve cases, and silence does not deliver justice. 6. A crime with too many shadows. The more one studies the tragedy, the clearer it becomes. This was not just a death. It was a vacuum. A place where facts should exist but don't. A place where CCTV shows intent, arrests show resolution, but the motive shows nothing. And that nothingness is what makes this case so haunting. Because crimes usually leave trails. Here, the trail seemed deliberately erased, carefully blurred, or never investigated deeply enough. 7. Setting the stage for the final chapters. As we transition out of Chapter 10, the story prepares to shift into its endgame. The remaining chapters will explore what the trial uncovered and failed to uncover, how the judiciary reacted in the long term, the legacy Judge Anand left behind, and the unresolved edges that continue to cast a shadow over the case. Because even with arrests, charges, and a closed file, the truth still feels unfinished. And some mysteries linger not because evidence is missing, but because the truth is simply too uncomfortable to confront. Where the case stands now. Even after the dust of the initial investigation settled, the story of Judge Uttam Anand's death refused to fade from public memory. Years have passed since that fateful day in Dhanbad, yet the case remains a tense blend of convictions, appeals, and unanswered questions. 1. Convictions and legal outcomes. Following the arrests of the alleged perpetrators, the legal system worked through its processes. Some key highlights. Primary suspect arrested. The driver and accomplices were brought to trial. Court hearings. Deliberations focused on establishing intent, whether the act was deliberate or reckless. Sentencing. Some were convicted of culpable homicide, while others faced charges for aiding or abetting the crime. Despite the court's rulings, many observers questioned whether justice was fully served. The motive remained murky, and questions about possible higher-level orchestration lingered. 2. Appeals and legal challenges. Convictions did not immediately close the case. The accused pursued multiple appeals, challenging the nature of the charge's evidence, admissibility, witness credibility. Each appeal drew out the process, delaying a sense of closure for the public and the judiciary alike. Legal analysts have noted that in high-profile cases like this, appeals often reveal gaps in investigation or procedural lapses, sometimes raising more questions than they answer. 3. Unresolved questions. Even now, several aspects remain unexplained. Motive. Despite extensive investigation, why was Judge Uttam Anand targeted? Potential masterminds. Were there figures behind the scenes orchestrating the attack? CCTV anomalies. Some frames suggested unusual timing or positioning of the vehicle that raised eyebrows. Witness inconsistencies. Conflicting testimonies left investigators with more questions than answers. The public continues to debate whether this was a personal vendetta, a political message, or part of a larger criminal nexus in the region. 4. Public response and continuing concern. The Dhanbad community and legal fraternity have watched the proceedings closely. Many reactions include calls for tighter judicial security, demand for transparency in investigating crimes against public officials, concern over how motive and responsibility are determined in high-profile cases. The case has become a touchstone for discussion about vulnerability of judges and public servants in India. 5. Legacy and impact. Though years have passed, the story of Judge Uttam Anand serves as a cautionary tale, highlighting the need for judicial protection in high-risk areas, exposing gaps in investigative procedures for vehicular attacks, demonstrating how public attention can pressure the system to act. It is a reminder that justice is a process, sometimes slow and often incomplete. 6. Looking ahead. As the case stands today, appeals continue, questions linger, public interest remains high. The narrative is far from over. Each new hearing, media report, or legal development adds layers to a story that is as much about the death of a judge as it is about the fragility of accountability in complex legal and social landscapes. Legacy. How Judge Anand's death changed India. The tragic death of Judge Uttam Anand was more than a single criminal incident. It became a wake-up call for the entire nation. Across India, it highlighted vulnerabilities in judicial security, exposed gaps in law enforcement preparedness, and ignited discussions on accountability at multiple levels. 1. Judicial safety reforms. One of the immediate impacts of the case was the reassessment of judicial safety protocols. Courts across Jharkhand and other states began implementing tighter security measures for judges, including personal protection and enhanced surveillance. The incident prompted mandatory training for court security personnel, focusing on vehicle-based threats and rapid response. Some states introduced new technologies such as panic buttons, CCTV coverage, and vehicular barriers near judges' residences. These reforms, though reactive, have prevented potential attacks in other high-risk zones, proving the tragic case had a tangible effect on judicial safety nationwide. 2. Public outcry and pressure. Judge Anand's death was not just a headline. It became a symbol of vulnerability for public servants. The media coverage sparked nationwide discussions about the risks faced by judicial officers and the need for systemic reforms. Public protests and petitions demanded accountability not just for the perpetrators, but for institutional lapses that allowed the attack to happen. Social media amplified the story, creating a collective call for change that pressured local and national authorities to act. In this way, the case became a catalyst for citizen engagement in judicial safety issues. 3. Legislative and policy responses. The tragedy also spurred legislative attention. Proposals for stricter laws protecting judges and public officials gained traction. Discussions about vehicular attack regulations and rapid response mechanisms were prioritized in Jharkhand State Assembly. Several committees recommended standardized safety protocols nationwide, emphasizing risk assessment for judges handling sensitive or high-profile cases. While not all proposals have become law, the dialogue around judicial safety continues, fueled by Judge Anand's case. 4. National symbol of vulnerability. The case transcended regional boundaries. Across India, Judge Anand's death is now referenced in training programs, legal seminars, and media discussions as a cautionary tale. Legal analysts highlight it when discussing the dangers faced by the judiciary and how systemic weaknesses can have tragic consequences. For ordinary citizens, it became a stark reminder that even the most respected and protected public officials are not immune to violence. In essence, the story has evolved from a tragic event into a national symbol of vulnerability and resilience. 5. Broader impact on legal culture. Beyond security measures, the case also influenced broader legal culture in India. Increased awareness about judicial accountability and protection encouraged public dialogue about threats to the rule of law, strengthened the understanding that justice must not only be delivered in courtrooms, but also safeguarded outside of them. By framing Judge Anand's death in the context of systemic reform, the narrative extends beyond the personal tragedy, reflecting the interplay between law, public safety, and societal responsibility. 6. Continuing relevance. Even today, years after the attack, authorities remain vigilant about judges' security, particularly in high-risk districts. The case is cited in national debates about protective legislation for public servants. For citizens, legal professionals, and policymakers alike, Judge Anand's death remains a touchstone for vigilance and reform. Ultimately, this chapter of India's legal history demonstrates that tragedy can be a powerful force for systemic change, but also a stark reminder that vigilance and reform are ongoing responsibilities. As we close this investigation into the vanished in Dhanbad, Judge Uttam Anand case, 2021, India, the facts are chilling, the motives unclear, and the questions remain haunting. This case reminds us that even those sworn to uphold justice can be vulnerable to sudden, violent acts, and the ripple effects of such tragedies touch families, communities, and the entire nation. If this deep dive into a true crime story fascinated you, make sure to like this video. If you value detailed investigations, comment below your thoughts on who you believe may be behind the attack. Share this story with friends who are captivated by real-life mysteries, and most importantly, subscribe to Dark Truth 25 for more in-depth true crime documentaries, so you never miss an update. Remember, every story has lessons, and sometimes justice, though delayed, leaves a mark that shapes the future.